Well, it seems we might finally be ditching the woke identity politics that has plagued us for years. Author Lionel Shriver writes there is genuine hope Donald Trump's emphatic victory is a woke watershed and that universities and businesses are realising they've been duped by the left. But is it too good to be true? Joining me from London is writer and commentator Esther Krakue. Esther, lovely to speak with you. Thank you for joining me. Look, there is no doubt that Donald Trump's victory has given a renewed sense of optimism that the woke is petering out. I'm optimistic, though I do think we still have some way to go. Are we jumping the gun? Is it too good to be true? What do you think?
Well, first of all, Happy New Year to you. And it seems like it's going to be a Happy New Year indeed, because we're seeing, at least on the corporate side, some indications that woke is finally dying a slow and painful death. We saw that Walmart, and basically in the wake of Donald Trump's election, basically mentioned that they're no longer going to take into account race and gender policies when choosing a supplier, and that they're going to review a lot of their sort of DEI initiatives. You have companies like Boeing basically phasing out their DEI program. Starbucks hasn't had a DEI program basically since April. You have Harley-Davidson as well saying they're going to review their DEI policies. You have HBO, the network, standing by J.K. Rowling, even though she's received a lot of heat for her gender-critical views and her views on basically men and women's spaces. And the network has decided to stand by her, which is an incredible thing. I mean, even in the statement that Walmart released when they were talking about reviewing their DEI policies, you know, they said they were a shop for all Americans, which is quite indicative of the fact that they know that these kind of woke policies are dividing people and it's doing businesses more harm than good. We saw what happened with Jaguar with their ridiculous advert and all the backlash they faced from that. No one can forget Bud Light and the controversy around there and how much, you know, their stock prices were severely hit by the fact that they decided to go with, you know, the transgender activist Dylan Mulvaney in their advertising, which really annoyed their customer base. So on the corporate side, we're seeing a lot of indications that actually woke is finally dying because they're realizing it's not good for their bottom dollar. However, on the public sector side, many sort of jurisdictions around the world, particularly the Western world, woke is not dying as slow and as painful death. You can see still like rainbow crossings, pedestrian crossings here in the UK, particularly in London, thanks to Sadiq Khan. You see sort of initiatives where, like in Canada, for example, districts in Ontario had to pay £8,000, the equivalent of 8,000 British pounds, for not announcing their Pride initiatives from 4 years ago. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are still happening in the public sector, but certainly in the private sector and the corporate space, woke is certainly dying, and it's a joy to see.
Well, what's the old saying? Go woke, go broke, as they say. It's all about their bottom line. It's all about the money. So, yeah, I completely understand why this is happening. Now, let's talk about the hapless wonder that is the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He has doubled down on his pledge to deliver change. Here was part of his New Year's address. Have a look.
Until you can look forward and believe in the promise and the prosperity of Britain again, then this government will fight for you. A fight for change that will define this year, next year, and indeed every waking hour of this government.
Esther, I don't even think this guy believes himself. How much optimism is there that he will actually make genuine change?
The answer to that will be zero. That New Year's announcement went down like a lead balloon. There is really no optimism in the country to be found. The problem with the Labour Party is they say one thing and they do the other. Unless you're a union or, you know, a train driver here in the UK, you really feel like Labour is only out there to benefit its client groups and basically give nods to its friends, a la Sadiq Khan. But if you're really a pensioner, if you're a farmer, if you're a student, if you're just a working person trying to be productive, pay taxes, you know, take care of your families, the Labour Party has nothing to offer you. If anything, they're detrimental. We talk about the ridiculous immigration figures that have hit basically 2 million in the last couple of years on this tiny island. But what no one's talking about, the people that are leaving. We just talk about net migration. We're not talking about the people that these people are replacing, these sort of lower value, more working class people from the developing world that are replacing, you know, high productivity, high net worth individuals. Can you believe that the UK has lost more millionaires than China, communist China, in the last year alone. And that's a trend that's only going to continue. The UK's Labour Party has nothing to offer the country. Economic growth is nowhere to be found. They're still cozying up to the EU that's struggling economically themselves. I mean, Germany hasn't grown in really close to a decade. And yet we have a prime minister and a cabinet that's enthralled to the EU and the EU promise and everything to do with Germany and France and all these dying European economies. So unfortunately, everything that he says falls on deaf ears. I think the biggest problem that the UK faces that the Labour Party just seems completely hopeless to address is energy. We have the highest energy prices in the developed world, and that affects everything from businesses to investment to households, and yet nothing is being done. We're going down this net zero madness with steaming fury, and unfortunately, there's not really much optimism to be found when this is the direction of travel.
No, it sounds like it's absolutely in a complete mess over there. And to add to that, 1,300 illegal migrants have now crossed the English Channel since Christmas Day alone, and hundreds more crossed today. Esther, look, it's clear that Labor cannot get this under control because that is a significant amount of migrants in just a week.
Yes, and when we talk about the idea of safety, they say, oh, but legal migration is so much higher. We should worry about them. At least legal migrants, we know who they are. They're vetted in some way or form. A lot of these illegal migrants crossing the channel, they destroy their documentation. They tend to come from regions of the world that are hotbeds for religious extremism. Many of them, the vast majority of them, are working age males. You're trying to tell communities, women and children, that they should feel safe with having unvetted, mainly males from dangerous parts of the world coming into the communities, living up in hotels, taking over their local communities. And the Labour Party has nothing to do, has basically no plan to solve this. They scrapped the Rwanda scheme. They continue to hand out hotels and benefits to these illegal aliens, while people in this country struggle to heat their homes or to find housing or even to feed their families. It is a complete and utter joke.
Now, you mentioned earlier Sadiq Khan, of course, the London mayor. He has been awarded a knighthood in the New Year's honours list. Esther, some have said that this decision makes the UK the laughingstock. How on earth did he get this honour?
Well, again, if you're one of the Labour Party's buddies, if you're part of their client groups, you obviously get a gong, even if it's for failure. London has become unrecognisable since 2016, since Sadiq Khan became the mayor. It has become more dangerous. Knife crime has been up by 50%. If you're a woman, forget traveling around at night in London. I mean, it's completely unrecognizable. It's just balkanization of ghettos and ethno-religious basically enclaves. And yet he's being rewarded for this failure. Now, I personally don't think any sitting politician should get an honor anyway, because I think it's extremely partisan and in very poor taste. But to give it to someone like Sadiq Khan just makes a mockery of the entire system. And unfortunately, people are going to lose more and more faith in this Labour government as a result.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. It's always jobs for the mates, as they say. Esther Krakue, good to see you. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for joining me on the show this evening.